Africa is underrepresented in global governance structures, from the Security Council to international financial institutions, but overrepresented in the very challenges these structures are designed to address. Conflicts, emergencies, and geopolitical divisions have an outsized impact on the African continent. And this Council's agenda demonstrates this. Nearly half of all country-specific or regional conflicts on your agenda concern Africa.
The UN Secretary-General António Guterres recently called for African countries to be given a permanent seat at the highest decision-making organ of the United Nations, saying Africa was underrepresented in the decision-making organs of the institution, yet most of the challenges the institution is meant to address, like conflict, security, and emergency, are Africa-centered. But what exactly motivates his calls for the inclusion of an African country on a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council? We will find out in this video. So, let's dive in. But just a polite reminder to share and like the video. And if you are new here, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that YouTube notifies you every time we upload a video. For centuries, Africa has been the base for European development, providing most of the raw materials that power the industries and the human resource that provided donkey labor, mostly procured through modern-day slavery of labor export. Africa is the second largest continent after Asia, and it is estimated to be home to 40% of the world's population by the end of the century. The continent also presents as the youngest, with an average age of 19 years. This information signifies the economic importance of Africa in the near future. Many non-critical thinkers will say, Africa is finally breaking out of Western bondage. But this is an imminent bait being set by the Western powers to secure Africa in a much upgraded prison, since they seem to be breaking out of the old one. To understand this better, let's look at the occurrences that preceded these calls by Guterres to give Africa a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. The ECOWAS defense chiefs held a meeting in Abuja, begging the nations of the Alliance of the Sahel states to return to ECOWAS. The West African regional bloc claims the withdrawal of the Sahel states will hamper efforts to combat the already fragile security situation in the region. It is very important that you get to know this as it informs our discussion. Shortly after the meeting of the ECOWAS defense chiefs, the Deputy Secretary-General of the United Nations, Amina J. Mohammed, traveled to Burkina Faso, where she met President Ibrahim Traore, for what was termed a high-profile discussion on security and geopolitics. So the big question, therefore, is, why did the Deputy Secretary-General specifically go to Burkina Faso? The answer is pretty simple. Burkina Faso, under the leadership of Captain Ibrahim Traore, is the pivot of African geopolitics, championing the drive for African liberation. The breakaway of the three Sahel states from the regional bloc of ECOWAS is a clear signal that Africa is angry for true independence. The Western world has for decades relied on ECOWAS as a proxy force for continued control of West African states. As ECOWAS continues to beg the Sahel states to return to their membership, it is crucial that we understand the reasons why they badly want the Sahel states to return to the Abuja-based madness. The ECOWAS defense chiefs claim they want Sahel states to return for security reasons, but that is not the point. The truth is, ECOWAS is a corrupt gang of thieves, just like the regular African leaders, and their concern is about losing 45 billion West African francs that the three Sahel states have been contributing annually in membership. Further, the withdrawal of the Sahel states cuts funding from World Bank by more than 25%. The cult leaders of ECOWAS do not want to lose this money. Additionally, ECOWAS is under immense pressure from the neo-colonial masters who have been funding it to control West Africa, to bring the three states back to captivity. Why do we say this? Because there is no logic in ECOWAS claiming the reason they want the Sahel states back to ECOWAS is for security reasons. Yet for the years ECOWAS has existed, it has never had any contingency plan to combat Islamist violence in the region. This applies to all other African organizations, including African Union. The Sahel Alliance on the other side is driven by results, with coordinated operations already against violent terror groups, most of which are funded by Western colonial masters seeking to destabilize the region to gain continued control. To the Western world, the hand that has fed their nations for generations is being cut off by Ibrahim Traore and his counterparts from Mali and Niger, with expanding influence as recently witnessed by the close ties between Senegal and Togo with the alliance of the Sahel states. Worse for the imperialist powers, the alliance of the Sahel states is demonstrating results of development, peace, and security to their people. This is opening the eyes of the African youth, who are now in full support of the leaders of the alliance. The Western powers would have liked to forcefully recolonize Africa, starting from Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. But the challenge they now face is that these countries have made an alliance with Russia, China, Iran, and Turkey. These countries are military technology giants, and with their technology in the hands of Africans, forceful invention of Africa is far from a dream come true. To better understand this, we need to carefully examine the composition of the United Nations Security Council. United States, France, and United Kingdom are all NATO states from the West, leaving only China from Asia and Russia, which is partly Asian, and Europe, leaving Africa unrepresented. The Western powers understand that Africa's close relations with Russia and China makes the two nations strong UNSC members. So they are willing to rush to blindfold Africans by calling for Africans to be given a seat at the UNSC. But irrespective of who is behind the calls for Africa to be given a permanent seat, or for what motive they wish to grant Africa a permanent seat at the Security Council, there are a lot of unanswered questions. The first question is, does Africa need a seat at the United Nations Security Council, or Africa needs an independent organization to address her own problems, like the Alliance of the Sahel States? The answer is clear. Africa needs its own organization that is formed without influence from imperialist states. This is because the United Nations has demonstrated its inability to address African issues since its formation in 1945, leaving African member nations paying membership fees for bare nothing. This notion is the same for many other African organizations, like ECOWAS and African Union, whose activities are mostly funded by the Western imperialist states. These organizations have for years failed to resolve a number of problems facing Africa. It is amazing how the leaders of the Sahel states are putting imperialist states on pressure, making them run around trying to fix what is unfixable because Africa is already on the move to great freedom. Well, a polite reminder to share this video, like, and subscribe if you are new to support the channel. Bye.